Hello, my dear listeners, and welcome back to this quiet corner where stories unfold like mist through ancient branches. I'm Anna, and tonight I'm especially grateful to share with you a place that has whispered to my heart for years. The mystical realm of Monteverde Cloud Forest in Costa Rica. There's something about the way emerald light filters through those perpetual veils of cloud. How the forest floor yields beneath your feet with the soft resilience of centuries-old moss, and the gentle symphony of hidden waterfalls that seem to call from every direction, yet nowhere at once. This is a landscape that breathes with ancient wisdom, where time moves as slowly as the mist that cradles every leaf and stone. As you settle into your comfortable space tonight, I wonder, what do you imagine it feels like when clouds become your companions, walking beside you rather than floating far above? Now, let me take your hand, dear traveler, and guide you gently into this ethereal world where earth meets sky in the most tender of embraces. We begin our journey as dawn breaks softly over the mountains of Costa Rica, where Monteverde Cloud Forest awakens with the grace of a sleeping giant stirring from dreams. The first light doesn't arrive as sunshine here, but rather as a pearl-white luminescence that seeps through layers upon layers of mist. This gossamer veil wraps around towering trees whose trunks disappear both above and below, creating the sensation that you're floating in a realm between worlds. The air tastes faintly of minerals and morning dew, carrying whispers of orchids that bloom in secret places high above the forest floor. Your bare feet touch the spongy earth, and immediately you feel the cool dampness rising through cushioned layers of decomposing leaves. Each step releasing the rich perfume of fertility and renewal. Tiny droplets cling to your skin as you move forward, each one a perfect sphere reflecting the opalescent light that filters down from the canopy. The temperature wraps around you like silk, neither warm nor cold, but perfectly balanced, as if the forest itself is regulating the very air you breathe. Somewhere in the distance, a bell-like note rings clear and pure, perhaps the call of a quetzal hidden among branches thick with bromeliads. The sound seems to hang in the humid air longer than it should, echoing softly off invisible tree trunks before dissolving into the gentle patter of condensation, falling like the softest rain from leaves overhead. As you venture deeper, your fingertips brush against bark that feels like velvet worn smooth by countless years of moisture and wind. Moss springs back beneath your touch with surprising resilience, while delicate ferns unfurl their fronds as you pass, releasing a green scent so pure it seems to cleanse your very thoughts. The fragrance evolves with each breath, now hinting at wild ginger, now carrying notes of earth and sky mingled together in perfect harmony. The path beneath your feet changes subtly, becoming softer, more yielding. Root systems create natural steps cushioned by layers of organic matter that have been accumulating for centuries. Each footfall is silent, absorbed by this living carpet that seems to welcome your presence while protecting the secrets of those who have walked here before. Above, the canopy reveals itself in fragments, glimpses of leaves in every shade of green imaginable, from the palest jade to the deepest emerald, all painted with silver where water droplets catch the diffused light. Vines cascade downward like nature's curtains, some thick as your arm, others delicate as silk ribbons, creating natural doorways that invite you forward into deeper mysteries. The air grows thicker now, heavy with moisture that clings to your arms and face like the gentlest caress. You can taste the forest on your tongue, a flavor both ancient and immediate, carrying stories of countless storms weathered, countless seasons turned, countless creatures that have found shelter in this misty sanctuary. A sudden movement catches your eye as a hummingbird materializes from the mist, its wings creating the faintest whisper as it hovers near a cluster of orange blossoms. The tiny creature seems unbothered by your presence, going about its eternal dance of survival and beauty before vanishing again into the ethereal landscape as quickly as it appeared. The sound of water grows stronger now, not the rush of a river, but the musical trickle of streams that appear and disappear among moss-covered rocks. You follow this liquid melody deeper into the forest's embrace, where every surface gleams with moisture, and every breath brings new fragrances. The sweet perfume of night-blooming flowers, the clean scent of wet stone, the complex aroma of life in all its myriad forms, flourishing in perfect balance. Your journey has only just begun, dear traveler, and already the Monteverde Cloud Forest is weaving its spell around you, preparing to reveal wonders that exist nowhere else on earth. The liquid melody draws you forward until you discover its source, a series of natural pools carved into volcanic rock, each one overflowing into the next like a staircase designed by water itself. The pools reflect the clouded sky so perfectly that for a moment you cannot tell where water ends and atmosphere begins. You kneel beside one of these mirror-like surfaces, watching as tiny fish with translucent bodies dart between submerged roots, their movements creating ripples that distort your reflection into something dreamlike and fluid. Behind the gentle cascade, you notice an opening in the rock face, not quite a cave, but a sheltered alcove where the stone curves inward like cupped palms. The walls here shimmer with a film of water, so thin it seems more like liquid light. And as you step inside, Your voice echoes with a hollow, musical quality that transforms even your breathing into song. Delicate maidenhair ferns cascade from crevices in the ceiling, their fronds so fine they seem woven from spider silk and shadow. Emerging from this natural cathedral, you find the landscape has shifted subtly around you. The mist has thickened, creating pockets of near invisibility that part like theater curtains as you move through them. In these hidden chambers of vapor, spider webs span impossible distances, strung with dewdrops that catch what little light penetrates the gloom and scatter it into tiny rainbows. The webs pulse gently with the movement of their inhabitants, spiders no larger than your thumbnail, their legs moving with the precision of master weavers. A hollow drumming echoes through the forest, the sound of a woodpecker somewhere in the canopy above, its rhythm so steady and hypnotic that your heartbeat begins to synchronize with its cadence. The percussive beats seem to awaken other sounds you hadn't noticed before. The whisper of leaves brushing against each other in the barely perceptible breeze, the soft plop of water drops falling from branch to branch in an endless percussion symphony, the rustle of unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth with practiced stealth. Your path begins to climb now, winding around buttress roots so massive they form natural archways and tunnels. These ancient supports twist skyward with muscular grace, their surfaces decorated with tiny orchids in shades of burgundy and cream. Their petals so waxy they seem carved from candlelight. The fragrance here is intoxicating, not sweet like the flowers you encountered earlier, but complex and mysterious, with undertones that remind you of vanilla and cinnamon, spices that seem impossible in this wild place, yet somehow perfectly at home. The climbing continues, but so gradually you barely notice the effort. Your legs move with increasing lightness, as if the thin air at this altitude is lifting you rather than challenging you. Breathing becomes deeper, more deliberate, each inhalation bringing not just oxygen, but a sense of expansion, as though your lungs are learning to hold more than air. Perhaps they're filling with the very essence of this mystical place. As elevation increases, the character of the forest transforms. Trees grow smaller, but more densely packed, their branches intertwining to create a maze of living architecture. Epiphytes clothe every available surface, not just the mosses and ferns you've grown accustomed to, but stranger plants with thick, waxy leaves that seem to glow from within. Some sport flowers that look carved from amber. Others display fruit that resembles clusters of tiny lanterns, each one pulsing with bioluminescent light, barely visible in the perpetual twilight. The air carries new textures now, not just moisture, but an almost electric quality that makes the fine hairs on your arms stand at attention. This is the feeling of being inside a cloud, of breathing the very substance that creates whether patterns and carries rain across continents. Your skin tingles with the sensation, as if thousands of microscopic feathers are brushing against every exposed surface. A clearing opens before you unexpectedly, circular and carpeted with a moss so vibrant it seems to generate its own emerald illumination. In the center grows a single tree unlike any you've encountered, its bark silver smooth, its canopy spreading in perfect symmetry to create a living umbrella. Beneath this natural pavilion, the air feels different, warmer, calmer, charged with an indefinable presence that makes you want to sit and simply exist in this moment of perfect stillness. You settle against the silver trunk, feeling its pulse through your spine, not the rapid heartbeat of smaller living things, but the slow, deep rhythm of something that measures time in centuries rather than seconds. The bark feels neither rough nor smooth against your back, but alive in a way that seems to communicate directly with your nervous system. Gradually, your breathing slows to match the tree's ancient tempo. From this vantage point, the forest reveals new secrets. Shafts of pearl light pierce the canopy at intervals, each beam illuminated by countless water droplets that dance like living constellations. In these columns of light, you begin to notice movement, not birds or insects, but something more ethereal. Seeds, perhaps, or pollen, or simply particles of the forest itself taking flight, rising and falling in endless, graceful spirals. The boundaries between yourself and the Monteverde Cloud Forest continue to soften as you rest here in this sacred grove, surrounded by mysteries that need no explanation, cradled by an ecosystem that has perfected the art of existing in perfect balance between earth and sky, between the tangible and the infinite. Your consciousness begins to drift like the mist itself, and in this liminal state between waking and dreaming, the forest reveals its most intimate secrets. A resonant humming rises from the earth beneath you, not heard so much as felt through your bones, the ancient vibration of a living system in perfect harmony with itself. This subsonic melody seems to emanate from the root networks, threading unseen through miles of rich soil, a communication system older than human language. Gradually, you become aware that your skin has taken on a new sensitivity, registering the subtlest changes in air pressure as weather patterns shift through the canopy. Each breath tastes different now, sometimes carrying hints of wild coffee blossoms that bloom only in darkness, other times flavored with the mineral tang of volcanic soil, renewed by millennia of patient erosion. Your taste buds detect notes you've never experienced before. The essence of altitude itself, the flavor of time moving slowly, the sweetness of air that has never known pollution. Standing again, your body moves with fluid grace, as if gravity has loosened its hold in this elevated realm. The forest floor beneath your feet has transformed into something resembling a vast cushion of star moss. Each tiny plant crowned with structures that look like minute galaxies of silver thread. When your weight compresses this living carpet, it releases not just the familiar earth scents, but something altogether more mysterious. An aroma that suggests distant oceans and the memory of ancient rains. The path ahead reveals itself through corridors of hanging gardens, where air plants have created vertical meadows in mid-space. Tillandsia specimens dangle at eye level, their gray-green tendrils stirring without any discernible breeze, as if moved by currents of energy invisible to human perception. Some display blooms of such unusual colors, they seem to belong to a different spectrum entirely. Purples that shift toward ultraviolet, reds that pulse with inner fire, yellows so pure they make your eyes water with unexpected emotion. Your fingertips discover new textures as you brush past these aerial inhabitants. Surfaces that feel like crushed velvet, others resembling the smoothest sea glass, and some with a quality that can only be described as touching concentrated moonlight. The sensation lingers on your skin long after contact, creating phantom impressions that continue to pulse gently against your palms. A distant sound draws your attention, neither bird call nor water song, but something resembling the tone produced by wind moving through a vast instrument. Following this ethereal music, you find yourself approaching a natural phenomenon unique to these cloud forests. A grove where the trees themselves have become living wind chimes. Hollow branches, carved by insects and time, produce haunting melodies as moisture-laden breezes flow through their chambers. Each tree contributes a different pitch, creating harmonies that seem composed by the forest's own consciousness. The acoustics here transform your footsteps into whispered percussion, while your breathing adds another layer to the ambient symphony. You discover that humming creates unexpected harmonics that bounce between the hollow trunks, your voice becoming part of an ancient song that has been playing for centuries, waiting for human voices to complete its composition. Moving beyond the musical grove, the landscape opens into terraced gardens created entirely by natural processes. Layers of different plant communities cascade down gentle slopes, each level hosting species adapted to specific moisture gradients. At the highest tier, plants with needle-thin leaves catch water directly from passing clouds. Below them, Broad-leafed varieties channel runoff into elaborate root systems. The lowest level hosts cushion plants that store moisture like living sponges, their surfaces yielding to pressure before slowly returning to their original shape. Your bare feet read the story of each terrace through soul sensation alone. Here, the ground feels almost gelatinous with stored water. There, crystalline structures in the soil create a texture like walking on crushed gems. Sometimes the earth yields so completely you sink several inches, feeling root networks part gently around your feet before embracing your ankles with living warmth. The thermal layers of the forest become more pronounced as evening approaches. Pockets of warm air rise from decomposing vegetation, creating invisible columns that caress your skin as you pass through them. These thermal currents carry complex aromatic signatures. The spicy warmth of fermenting fruits you cannot see, the cooling mint essence of crushed leaves, the almost narcotic perfume of night-blooming vines preparing to open their flowers to nocturnal pollinators. Your journey leads to a phenomenon known only to those who venture deep enough into Monteverde's heart. A natural amphitheater where the forest floor dips into a perfect bowl shape, its walls lined with plants whose leaves have evolved into acoustic reflectors. Standing at the center of this biological concert hall, even your softest whisper returns to you transformed, layered with harmonic overtones that seem to carry your voice through octaves you never knew you possessed. The sensation of sound moving through your body here is unlike anything you've experienced. Vibrations travel not just through air to your ears, but through the soles of your feet, up your spine, resonating in your chest cavity, until you become a living instrument played by the forest's own breath. Your heartbeat amplifies and echoes back to you, creating rhythms within rhythms, a percussion section for the forest's endless composition. As true darkness begins to approach, though in this mist-wrapped realm, the transition from day to night happens gradually, like watercolors bleeding into one another. Bioluminescent life begins to reveal itself. Fungi emit soft blue-green glows from rotting logs, while certain insects trace lazy spirals of cold fire through the humid air. Even some plants participate in this nocturnal light show, their flowers pulsing with internal illumination that attracts pollinators navigating by living starlight. Your skin begins to register these light sources as warmth, though they produce no heat. The sensation resembles standing near a candle flame, but cooler, gentler, as if light itself has weight and texture, brushing against your arms and face with touches softer than butterfly wings. This phantom warmth creates a cocoon of comfort around your moving body, ensuring that despite the increasing coolness of night air, you remain perfectly temperature balanced in your exploration of this luminous wonderland. The Monteverde Cloud Forest continues to envelope you in its mysteries. Each step deeper into its embrace, revealing new dimensions of beauty that exist nowhere else on Earth, carrying you ever further into a realm where dreams and reality interweave like mist through midnight branches. The luminous tapestry around you begins to pulse with a rhythm deeper than your own breathing, and you realize the forest's bioluminescence follows tidal patterns invisible to daylight consciousness. Certain mosses brighten and dim in waves that sweep across the landscape like slow lightning, creating the sensation of walking through aurora that has descended to earth level. Your shadow multiplies and shifts as these living light sources ebb and flow, sometimes casting you in sharp relief against glowing tree trunks, other times dissolving your silhouette entirely into the phosphorescent atmosphere. A new fragrance emerges from the cooling air, not the floral or mineral scents you've grown familiar with, but something that recalls the smell of starlight. If starlight could have an aroma, this celestial perfume seems to emanate from crystalline formations that stud certain rocks, their surfaces catching and concentrating the forest's gentle radiance into focused beams no wider than pencil leads. When you lean close to examine these natural prisms, your breath fogs their faceted surfaces, creating momentary kaleidoscopes of refracted light that dance across your cheeks. Your path descends now through a series of natural switchbacks carved by centuries of runoff, each turn revealing vantage points where the cloud layer spreads below you like a vast white sea. From these elevated perches, you can observe the forest's breathing patterns, how certain areas inhale mist while others exhale it in gentle spirals that rise toward invisible stars. The temperature differential creates microbreezes that carry acoustic signatures from distant valleys. The bass notes of howler monkeys settling into sleep, the crystalline tinkle of water finding new channels through limestone formations, pools of accumulated fog drift at ankle height through certain valleys, creating the sensation of wading through liquid smoke. Your feet disappear completely into these vapor lakes, while your calves experience the peculiar sensation of being simultaneously wet and dry, dampened by condensation, yet never actually immersed in water. The fog pools follow ancient drainage patterns, flowing around obstacles with liquid grace while maintaining their gaseous nature, defying simple categorization as either atmosphere or precipitation. Scattered throughout these mist rivers grow plants that seem designed by imagination rather than evolution. Succulents with leaves like curved mirrors, reflect the forest's bioluminescence in concentrated patches of brilliance. Climbing vines display seed pods that chime softly when brushed by passing vapor. Their hollow chambers tuned to frequencies that resonate with your inner ear, creating sensations of harmony felt rather than heard. Ground-hugging varieties spread in perfect geometric patterns, their fractal arrangements visible only from directly above, as if the forest floor has been inscribed with mathematical poetry. The soil texture shifts beneath your steps as you traverse these botanical galleries, sometimes granular like coarse sand, other times springy with decomposed wood that compresses into temporary footprints before slowly erasing your passage. Occasionally, you encounter patches where the earth feels almost effervescent, tiny pockets of trapped air releasing themselves under pressure to create a gentle tickling sensation against your soles. A natural bridge spans a chasm carved by an underground stream, its surface carpeted with moss varieties that register your weight by changing color, green where unstressed, deepening to burgundy under pressure, then slowly fading back as you pass. Crossing this living barometer, you leave a temporary trail of color that marks your passage like footprints made of shifting rainbows, each step a brushstroke on the forest's own canvas. The air current flowing up from the hidden water below carries new aromatic messages. The metallic sweetness of dissolved minerals, the green freshness of underground photosynthesis, and stranger scents that suggest the presence of caves extending far beyond what surface exploration might reveal. These subterranean fragrances blend with descending flower essences to create olfactory layers as complex as musical harmonies, each inhalation bringing subtle variations in the aromatic symphony. Beyond the bridge, the forest architecture transforms yet again. Here grow trees with naturally occurring windows, hollow sections in their trunks that frame perfect views of the landscape beyond, as if the forest has developed its own aesthetic sensibility and positioned these organic picture frames to showcase its most photogenic vistas. Peering through these living portals, you observe how mist moves differently in distant valleys, sometimes accelerating into visible rivers of vapor, other times spreading so gradually that individual droplets seem frozen in midair. Your palms discover bark textures that feel like organic fabrics, some resembling raw silk with natural irregularities that catch and guide your fingers, others smooth as polished leather, but warm with internal circulation. Certain trees feature bark that yields slightly under pressure, creating the impression of touching living skin rather than protective exterior coating. These tactile variations tell stories of adaptation and survival. Each surface texture a response to specific environmental pressures developed over millennia. The understory here hosts creatures you sense rather than see movement detected through peripheral vision. Rustling that stops precisely when you turn to investigate. The feeling of being observed by benevolent presences that wish neither to disturb nor be disturbed. These phantom inhabitants add layers of awareness to your forest experience, creating a sense of community with beings who share this misty realm. According to protocols far older than human understanding, temperature variations become more pronounced as air masses with different histories merge and separate around you. Pockets of coolness carry hints of high-altitude snow from peaks invisible above the cloud layer, while warm currents speak of volcanic activity deep beneath the forest floor. These thermal stories write themselves across your skin in chapters of sensation that shift and change with each footfall forward into the forest's deepening mysteries. The night sounds develop increasing complexity as creatures invisible in daylight begin their evening activities. Percussion instruments of unknown origin create polyrhythms in the canopy, perhaps seed pods rattling or hollow stems knocking together, or the percussive feeding sounds of insects evolved to contribute to the forest's ambient music. These natural rhythms synchronize with your footsteps until you realize you've become part of an enormous musical composition that has been performing continuously for thousands of years, adding human notes to a symphony that welcomes all voices willing to match its ancient tempo. Your journey through Monteverde Cloud Forest continues to unfold like a living meditation, each moment revealing new dimensions of interconnected beauty that exist in perfect balance between the knowable and the eternal mystery. Your path curves toward an ancient clearing where time seems to pool like still water, collecting moments from centuries past into visible layers. Here, fallen logs have become nurseries for entire ecosystems, their decaying surfaces supporting gardens so miniature you must kneel to appreciate their intricate detail. Colonies of cup-shaped fungi, no larger than thimbles, create fairy landscapes, complete with tiny pathways worn by creatures too small to see, but whose presence you feel as a gentle tickling across your wrists when you hover your hands above these microscopic cities. The sensation of scale shifts dramatically in this primordial space. Your breathing sounds enormous in your own ears, each exhalation creating weather systems for the diminutive worlds at your feet, while simultaneously you feel dwarfed by the immensity of ecological time, stretching both forward and backward from this single moment. The paradox creates a pleasant vertigo, as if your consciousness is expanding and contracting like a slow heartbeat, teaching you new ways to exist within multiple dimensions simultaneously. Magnetic fields seem to flow differently here, creating subtle disorientation that manifests as a dreamy lightness in your limbs. Your internal compass spins lazily, unable to distinguish true north from the magnetic pull of iron-rich volcanic soil that draws at the metal in your blood. This gentle confusion becomes oddly comforting, releasing you from the need to navigate by familiar landmarks and allowing the forest itself to guide your wandering steps through intuitive pathways older than conscious thought. Strange atmospheric pressures massage your temples with invisible fingers, the result of air masses compressed by the unique topography of this mountain ecosystem. These pressure waves create sensations reminiscent of gentle altitude sickness, but pleasant rather than uncomfortable. A floating feeling that makes your skull feel simultaneously heavier and lighter, as if your thoughts are being reorganized by forces beyond ordinary weather patterns. Crystalline deposits in the bedrock create electromagnetic fields that hum just below the threshold of hearing, vibrations that your skeleton resonates with rather than your eardrums. This subsonic conversation between mineral and bone produces a state of deep physical relaxation, as if every calcium molecule in your body is being individually massaged by frequencies calibrated to the exact resonance of human anatomy. The vegetation surrounding this power spot displays unusual characteristics. Leaves that track your movement without wind to guide them. Flowers that close and open in response to your proximity, rather than following solar rhythms. These plant behaviors suggest awareness operating through sensory mechanisms unknown to human science, creating the uncanny sensation of being recognized by intelligences that communicate through chemical signals your nose can detect, but your mind cannot translate. Proceeding beyond this responsive garden, your route follows a ridge where the forest meets sky in ways that challenge three-dimensional thinking. Cloud tendrils weave between tree branches and through your hair with equal casualness, making it impossible to determine where atmosphere ends and vegetation begins. Your reflection appears intermittently in water droplets large enough to serve as convex mirrors, showing you fractured images of yourself from unexpected angles. The curve of your shoulder from above, the line of your jaw reflected in a raindrop clinging to a spider's web. Gravitational anomalies create pockets where objects fall more slowly than expected. Small stones released from your palm drifting downward like feathers through thick honey. These areas of altered physics correspond with spots where underground streams flow over buried metallic veins, creating localized distortions in the fabric of normal experience. Standing within these zones, your inner ear registers conflicting signals about vertical orientation, producing a sensation similar to floating in warm salt water while remaining completely dry. The textures beneath your feet tell stories of geological drama played out across eras beyond human comprehension. Compressed leaf matter from countless autumns creates layers you can feel through your soles, distinct strata that chronicle decades of seasonal change, each level preserving aromatic signatures of years when different species dominated the canopy. Your steps release time-locked fragrances, the ghostly sweetness of flowers that bloomed when your grandparents were children, the green intensity of ferns that flourished during unusually wet decades, the spicy bite of bark that protected trees through droughts you never knew occurred. Ahead, the landscape reveals a phenomenon unique to these precise coordinates and elevation. Trees that grow in perfect spirals, their trunks twisted by magnetic forces into living helixes that seem to drill slowly skyward. These botanical corkscrews create optical illusions as you walk among them, their curved surfaces redirecting your gaze in directions that make distant objects appear closer and nearby features seem to recede. The disorienting effect induces a trance-like state where linear thinking dissolves into patterns of perception, more suited to navigating dreamscapes than physical terrain. Epiphytes growing on these twisted giants display impossible geometries, their root systems forming complex mathematical figures that pulse with hydraulic rhythms as water moves through their specialized tissues. These aerial plants seem to photosynthesize moonlight as efficiently as sunlight, their leaves maintaining tropical green intensity despite the permanent twilight of their cloud-wrapped environment. Touching their surfaces produces mild electrical sensations, as if they store and release bioelectric charges gathered from atmospheric activity. The air itself becomes increasingly substantial, thick enough to feel texture variations as you move through pockets of different density. Some areas offer resistance, like walking through invisible curtains, while others feel so thin you experience momentary breathlessness despite the abundance of oxygen. These atmospheric inconsistencies correspond with temperature inversions that create vertical currents carrying botanical fragrances from forest levels both above and below your current position, blending scents from multiple ecosystems into olfactory experiences impossible anywhere else on Earth. Your journey has transported you beyond the realm of ordinary natural encounters into territories where Monteverde Cloud Forest reveals its most closely guarded secrets, preparing to offer you experiences that will linger in cellular memory long after conscious recollection fades into the peaceful depths of restorative sleep. Your consciousness floats through corridors where hanging gardens suspend themselves in defiance of gravity, their root systems extending horizontally through humid air, as if solid ground were merely a suggestion. These aerial meadows host butterflies with wings like stained glass windows, their flight patterns so languid they seem choreographed by the same forces that move continental plates. When they land on your outstretched arms, their feet create pinpricks of warmth that spread outward in slow circles, as if each tiny contact point becomes a miniature sun radiating comfort through your skin. Hollow bamboo segments scattered throughout this vertical ecosystem create wind instruments that respond to the subtlest air movements, producing notes so low they register as physical sensation rather than sound. Your ribcage becomes a resonating chamber for these bass frequencies, vibrating in harmony with wooden tubes that have been naturally tuned by decades of weathering. The sensation resembles being gently shaken by enormous, invisible hands that know exactly how much pressure your body craves for perfect relaxation. Phosphorescent streams emerge from underground sources you cannot locate, their waters carrying trace minerals that emit soft amber light as they cascade over smooth volcanic rocks. Cupping this liquid radiance in your palms reveals its unusual properties, neither warm nor cool, but exactly the temperature of your internal body heat, creating the uncanny sensation of holding liquid extensions of yourself. The taste carries hints of ancient rainfall that fell when these mountains were young, flavored with time itself and the patient dissolution of primordial stone. Clusters of hanging pods rattle with seeds that sound like distant rain when stirred by breezes you cannot feel. These natural maracas create polyrhythmic conversations across the canopy, each species contributing distinctive timbres to a percussion ensemble that never repeats the same combination twice. Your pulse adjusts to match these organic beats, synchronizing your cardiovascular system with botanical rhythms that have been perfecting their timing for millennia. The ground beneath transforms into something resembling a vast waterbed, its surface yielding and reforming around your steps with fluid responsiveness. This living floor consists of root mats so densely interwoven they function as a single organism, breathing collectively as moisture levels fluctuate throughout the ecosystem. Walking becomes effortless gliding, each footfall cushioned by vegetative springs that return precisely the right amount of energy to propel your next step forward. Vertical meadows drape from branches like organic tapestries, their surfaces decorated with dewdrops that act as tiny prisms, splitting ambient light into spectral components that paint rainbow fragments across your clothing. These hanging prairies sway without wind, moved by growth patterns too slow for normal perception, but perfectly visible in your current state of expanded temporal awareness. You watch individual leaves unfurl in time-lapse motion, their cellular expansion creating gentle rustling sounds as new surface area stretches into existence. Thermal vents release aromatic vapors from deep soil layers where decomposition has been occurring for centuries, creating perfumed steam baths that envelop your body in fragrances distilled from the molecular essence of botanical history. These natural aromatherapy chambers infuse your hair and clothing with complex scent signatures that will trigger sense memories of this mystical journey for months to come, long after you've returned to ordinary waking consciousness. Your fingernails begin registering textures with unprecedented sensitivity, detecting surface variations invisible to your eyes. Bark patterns become braille messages written in a language older than human communication. Their raised ridges and smooth valleys telling stories of seasonal cycles, insect partnerships, and survival strategies developed through countless generations of adaptive refinement. Each tree becomes a library of tactile information that your hands read with fluent understanding. Magnetic anomalies create pockets where metal objects behave unusually. Your watch hands spin backwards briefly before resuming normal motion, while coins balanced on flat surfaces roll uphill toward invisible attractive forces. These gravitational quirks produce pleasant disorientation in your inner ear, a gentle tumbling sensation like floating in zero gravity, while remaining firmly grounded on the forest floor. Spider silk highways stretch between distant trees, their strands thick enough to support the weight of your palm when you test them experimentally. These biological cables vibrate with information traveling between web communities, transmitting data about weather patterns, prey availability, and territorial boundaries through frequencies your fingers can detect as subtle pulsations. The silk feels warmer than surrounding air temperature, heated by the electrical activity of interarachnid communication networks. Caves carved by underground rivers reveal themselves through subtle air currents that carry subterranean temperatures across your ankles. These hidden chambers exhale breath-like drafts that smell of limestone dissolution and mineral precipitation. Geological processes that operate on timescales that make human lifespans seem like single heartbeats. The cave breath creates swirling patterns in ground-level mist, invisible air currents made visible by their interaction with water vapor. Certain flowers track your movement with mechanical precision, their petals rotating to maintain eye contact as you pass. These botanical companions seem to recognize human presence through sensory mechanisms beyond ordinary plant awareness, responding to bioelectric fields or pheromone signatures that identify you as a temporary member of their ecosystem. Their attention feels benevolent rather than predatory, like being acknowledged by ancient intelligences that welcome respectful visitors to their domain. Sound shadows appear behind massive tree trunks, zones of acoustic dampening, where even your footsteps become completely silent. Standing within these audio voids creates the sensation of existing outside normal reality, as if you've discovered gaps in the universe's sensory fabric, where experience becomes purely internal. Your breathing sounds impossibly loud in these dead zones, while thoughts seem to echo with unusual clarity through the absence of ambient noise. The journey continues, weaving through landscapes where natural laws bend into more flexible configurations, where Monteverde's deepest mysteries reveal themselves only to consciousness that has learned to perceive reality through the forest's own sensory vocabulary, carrying you ever deeper into realms of experience that dissolve the boundaries between dreaming and wakefulness, between human awareness and the infinite patience of ecological wisdom. Translucent fish dart through aerial streams that flow between branches without banks or beds, their scales catching ambient radiance as they navigate currents of pure humidity. These atmospheric waterways follow ancient paths carved by centuries of condensation, creating aquatic highways suspended in three-dimensional space where gravity holds no dominion. Your outstretched hand parts these flowing vapors, feeling the cool slip of liquid air between your fingers as tiny silver bodies brush against your palm with touches lighter than silk scarves. Crystalline formations jutting from cliff faces sing in frequencies that bypass your ears entirely, resonating directly through dental fillings and the calcium deposits in your joints. These mineral choirs perform harmonies that seem to emanate from the mountain's geological core, their vibrational messages traveling through bone conduction to create music only your skeleton can hear. Each note triggers pleasant tingling sensations that cascade down your spine like slow-motion champagne bubbles dissolving into warmth. Colonies of cup fungi glow with bioluminescent intensity that pulses in response to carbon dioxide levels, brightening noticeably each time you exhale in their vicinity. These living mood rings transform your breath into visible art, creating halos of intensified radiance that expand and contract with your respiratory rhythm. The effect turns simple breathing into conscious collaboration with organisms that treat your presence as welcome participation in their nocturnal light performances. Canopy bridges woven from vine networks create highways for creatures whose footsteps you feel transmitted through the flexible pathways before you see their makers. Tree frogs with skin like polished jade leap overhead, their landings on the organic suspension cables sending gentle vibrations through the entire elevated transportation system. These tremors reach your feet as soft percussion beats, transforming the forest infrastructure into an enormous stringed instrument played by the movement of its inhabitants. Pockets of heated air rise from volcanic vents, so distant their exact locations remain mysterious, carrying therapeutic minerals in gaseous form that penetrate your clothing to warm muscles you hadn't realized were tense. These invisible hot springs bathe your body in healing vapors while you walk, creating the sensation of moving through a spa treatment that follows you rather than requiring your stationary presence. The mineral-rich atmosphere leaves your skin feeling softer and your joints more flexible with each thermal encounter. Seed pods designed by evolutionary processes beyond ordinary understanding split open at your approach, releasing spores that sparkle like microscopic fireworks before settling on your shoulders and hair. These botanical celebrations transform you into a temporary galaxy. Your human form, decorated with thousands of tiny stellar explosions that twinkle briefly before dissolving into your clothing. The spores carry genetic information from parent plants, making you an unwitting messenger in reproductive cycles that span decades. Underground percussion instruments created by hollow root systems amplify your heartbeat, bouncing the rhythm through subterranean chambers until it returns to your awareness as an echo of your own life force. These biological amplifiers teach you to hear your pulse as external music, transforming internal physiological processes into environmental soundscapes that make you conscious of inhabiting your body rather than simply existing within it. Sections of trail paved with naturally occurring rubber-like substances provide surfaces so responsive they seem to anticipate your footfalls, adjusting their density and texture milliseconds before impact to provide optimal comfort for your gait. These adaptive pathways feel almost sentient in their accommodation, as if the forest has developed walking surfaces specifically calibrated to human biomechanics. Through centuries of observing occasional travelers, perfumed oils seeping from certain bark varieties create aromatherapy experiences that shift psychological states with remarkable precision, some producing alertness that makes colors appear more vivid, others inducing contemplative moods that slow your perception of time until each moment feels elastic and expandable. These natural psychoactive fragrances never overwhelm, instead providing gentle nudges toward emotional states that enhance rather than dominate your forest experience. Microscopic creatures inhabiting water droplets create swirling patterns visible only when backlit by bioluminescent plants, transforming individual dewdrops into tiny aquariums filled with choreographed performances. These miniature ballets play out on leaf surfaces and spider webs throughout the forest, each droplet hosting unique combinations of organisms whose movements generate entertainment on a scale requiring close observation to appreciate fully. Wind tunnels carved by peculiar topographical features create zones where air moves with unusual laminar flow, generating pressure differentials that support lightweight objects in temporary suspension. Flower petals, seed fragments, and even small insects hover motionlessly in these atmospheric anomalies, creating three-dimensional galleries of suspended natural sculptures that shift and change as air currents fluctuate. Certain clearings contain plants whose root systems have developed symbiotic relationships with underground fungi networks, creating biological internet connections that transmit chemical messages across vast distances. Standing within these communication hubs produces subtle electromagnetic sensations as data flows through the mycelial cables beneath your feet, making you aware of participating in conversations conducted in molecular languages. Your nervous system can sense but not translate. Nighttime brings creatures whose primary adaptations involve producing sounds designed specifically for inducing relaxation in other species. Evolutionary developments that serve to calm potential prey or reduce territorial tensions through audio tranquilization. These natural lullaby specialists create soundscapes so precisely tuned to mammalian neurology that your stress hormones automatically decrease as their melodies filter through the forest air. Temperature gradients create invisible staircases where ascending warm air provides lifting sensations that make climbing feel effortless. Your body weight partially supported by thermal currents rising from decomposing vegetation. These biological elevators carry you upward with minimal muscular effort, transforming vertical movement into floating sensations that make you feel temporarily exempt from ordinary physical limitations. The forest's final mystery reveals itself as consciousness begins to merge with the vast intelligence distributed throughout every leaf, root, and spore. An awareness that transcends individual identity to encompass the collective wisdom of an ecosystem that has been perfecting the art of harmonious existence for millions of years. Your human thoughts blend seamlessly with botanical rhythms, creating a state of expanded awareness that will carry you gently into dreams where the boundary between self and forest dissolves completely into peaceful, restorative sleep. Within this expanded consciousness, your awareness begins to register the forest's circulatory system. Vast networks of sap moving through cambium layers with the slow patience of geological time. These botanical bloodstreams pulse with seasonal urgency, now dormant in the perpetual spring of cloud forest climate. Their rhythms detectable through your palm when pressed against certain smooth-barked species. The sensation resembles feeling a giant's pulse, each beat separated by long moments of stillness that teach your own cardiovascular system new patterns of efficiency. Colonies of air-breathing roots descend from branches like organic chandeliers, their surfaces covered in microscopic pores that open and close with visible contractions. These aerial lungs process atmospheric gases with such efficiency that standing among them produces a heady oxygen richness that makes your thoughts feel crystalline and your vision preternaturally sharp. Colors intensify until individual leaves display dozens of distinct green variants you lack vocabulary to name, each shade carrying emotional resonances that bypass rational thought to trigger direct aesthetic pleasure. Chambers hollowed by carpenter ants in fallen logs create acoustic phenomena where whispered words transform into musical tones. The insect's architectural precision, having inadvertently designed sound processing organs throughout the forest floor, speaking into these natural microphones, returns your voice transformed into something resembling singing bowls or temple bells. The timbre rendered both more resonant and strangely intimate. Your name, whispered into hollow wood, returns as melody that makes you remember why humans first learned to create music. Pendulum vines hang at precise lengths that create metronomes when disturbed by passing wildlife. Their weighted seed clusters swinging with mathematical regularity that entrains your brainwaves into meditative frequencies. These biological timepieces tick away moments measured not in seconds, but in breaths, heartbeats, and the gradual rotation of leaves following invisible light sources through perpetually overcast skies. Time becomes tactile rather than conceptual, something you feel passing through your body rather than observe from outside its flow. Lichen colonies form living compasses on stone surfaces, their growth patterns orienting toward magnetic north with such precision that touching their fuzzy surfaces produces directional awareness through fingertip contact alone. These biological GPS systems guide your wandering without conscious navigation. Your subconscious mind reading their mineral detecting capabilities to maintain spatial orientation, even as rational thought dissolves into dreamy contemplation of beauty, existing purely for its own sake. Seasonal phenomena persist in miniature throughout the cloud forest's eternal growing season. Flowers that bloom for single days, fruiting that occurs in cycles measured by lunar phases rather than solar seasons. Witnessing these compressed temporal events produces time-lapse awareness, where you observe entire life cycles completing themselves within minutes of focused attention. Watching becomes participatory meditation, your observation somehow essential to the processes you're witnessing. Underground chambers carved by ancient lava flows create resonant spaces where footsteps above ground trigger harmonic responses from hollow caverns below. These subterranean echo chambers transform walking into unconscious music making, each step contributing to compositions that play out in frequencies too low for conscious hearing, but perfectly audible to your bones and internal organs. The mountain itself becomes your inadvertent collaborator in creating ambient soundscapes. Parasitic plants that have evolved beyond their host dependency create architectural sculptures from their own abandoned root systems, leaving behind organic frameworks that function as miniature greenhouses for even smaller species. These plant-built botanical gardens demonstrate intelligence operating through mechanisms science hasn't yet recognized. Their creators having deliberately designed habitat for creatures that provide no obvious evolutionary benefit to the architects. Thermal layers in the atmosphere create invisible elevations where certain insects navigate, as if following contour lines on topographical maps made of temperature rather than altitude. Observing their flight patterns reveals these thermal territories, three-dimensional landscapes of warmth and coolness that exist parallel to, but separate from the physical geography your feet traverse. Your skin learns to read these atmospheric elevations, detecting thermal boundaries through sensation alone. Cooperative relationships between species create biological machinery that operates through interspecies coordination. Certain flowers opening only when specific butterflies approach. Trees dropping seeds exclusively when particular mammals pass beneath their canopy. Witnessing these cooperative behaviors produces awareness of intelligence distributed across multiple organisms. Decision-making processes that transcend individual consciousness to operate through collective wisdom. Magnetic sand particles in stream beds create patterns that shift in response to subtle electromagnetic fluctuations. Their configurations spelling out messages in languages written by geological forces rather than human hands. These mineral texts remain readable for brief moments before dissolving into new arrangements. Their meanings accessible only to consciousness that has learned to think in geological timescales rather than human urgency. Perfume-producing fungi release aromatic clouds timed to coincide with specific atmospheric pressure changes. Their chemical communications becoming part of weather prediction systems that extend throughout the forest community. Breathing these meteorological fragrances provides intuitive weather awareness. Your lungs processing atmospheric intelligence gathered and concentrated by organisms evolved to understand climatic patterns through molecular analysis. Gravitational variations caused by underground water movement create zones where dropped objects fall along curved trajectories, their paths bent by mass distributions hidden beneath the forest floor. These localized physics anomalies produce pleasant disorientation that makes ordinary movement feel like dancing. Your body automatically adjusting to forces that exist nowhere else on Earth, while your inner ear learns to interpret balance through entirely new parameters. The forest's final gift emerges as complete sensory integration, where individual perceptions merge into unified awareness, encompassing sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell as facets of single, indivisible experience. Your consciousness expands to embrace the forest's own sensory vocabulary, perceiving through root networks, photosynthetic processes, and chemical communications that connect every organism into collaborative intelligence, spanning thousands of acres of interconnected life. This ultimate unity carries you beyond the boundaries of individual identity into shared awareness with an ecosystem that has mastered the art of existing in perfect harmony with itself. Your thoughts becoming indistinguishable from the forest's own dreaming as consciousness flows like mist through the eternal twilight of Monteverde's cloud-wrapped embrace, dissolving peacefully into the deep, restorative sleep where human dreams and forest wisdom merge into a single, continuous flow of healing rest. Crystalline dewdrops along spider silk, highways begin to vibrate at frequencies that match the electrical impulses traveling through your nervous system, creating a living web of bioelectric communication that spans the entire forest canopy. Each strand becomes a neuron in an enormous brain where your thoughts contribute to collective problem-solving processes that have been calculating optimal resource distribution for centuries. The sensation of participating in this organic supercomputer produces a gentle buzzing in your fingertips that spreads slowly up your arms like warm honey flowing through your bloodstream. Fossilized wood embedded in cliff faces releases ancient aromatics when touched by moisture, unlocking scent libraries preserved in amber-like tree resin for thousands of years. These prehistoric perfumes carry olfactory memories of climates that existed before human consciousness. Their molecular structures triggering genetic memories stored in the deepest layers of your brain stem. Inhaling these temporal fragrances produces nostalgic emotions for experiences you never lived, comfortable sadness for losses that occurred long before your birth. Trailing wisps of fog create temporary tattoos on your skin, their moisture patterns following the electromagnetic field lines generated by your nervous system. These vapor decorations shift and flow across your body like living artwork, drawing intricate designs that mirror the fractal patterns found in fern fronds and spiral shell formations. The cool dampness feels like invisible paintbrushes applying liquid silver to canvas made of human flesh. Each stroke creating temporary beauty that exists only as long as the mist maintains its delicate cohesion. Bamboo segments naturally tuned to harmonic frequencies create spontaneous music when rainwater accumulates in their hollow chambers. The liquid levels determining pitch variations that change throughout the night as evaporation alters the acoustic properties. These organic water glasses perform compositions that respond to humidity fluctuations, their melodies becoming more complex as atmospheric moisture increases, and simpler as dry air draws down reservoir levels within the resonating tubes. Pressure-sensitive moss carpets respond to footfall patterns by releasing bioluminescent spores that mark your path with trails of gentle radiance, creating navigation aids that glow just long enough to guide other nocturnal travelers before fading into darkness. These biological breadcrumbs transform your passage into temporary installation art. Each journey through the forest creating unique light sculptures that exist briefly in four-dimensional space before dissolving back into the anonymous darkness of undisturbed wilderness. Carnivorous plants with trigger mechanisms so sensitive they respond to emotional vibrations rather than physical contact, demonstrate botanical empathy that borders on telepathic awareness. Their trap doors flutter open and closed in response to your mood changes, creating visual feedback loops between human psychology and plant behavior that that suggest forms of interspecies communication, operating through quantum field fluctuations rather than chemical or mechanical stimuli. Steam vents carrying sulfurous minerals from volcanic activity deep within the mountain create natural saunas where geometric rock formations channel heated vapors into perfectly human-sized chambers. These geological hot tubs maintain ideal temperatures for extended soaking. Their mineral content adjusted by underground processes that seem designed specifically for therapeutic treatment of mammalian circulation systems. The warm vapors penetrate your clothing to reach skin directly, creating full-body heating that relaxes muscles from the inside out. Nocturnal pollinators with wings that generate subsonic frequencies during flight create mobile sources of healing vibrations that follow you through the forest. Their wing beats producing therapeutic massage effects that penetrate cellular structures to promote tissue regeneration and stress hormone reduction. These flying healers seem drawn to areas where human bioelectric fields indicate tension or fatigue, providing targeted treatment through acoustic medicine delivered by creatures evolved to recognize and respond to physiological need. Layers of decomposing vegetation create natural escalators where foot pressure triggers hydraulic mechanisms that provide upward lift assistance. The compressed organic matter functioning like slow-motion pneumatic systems designed by decomposition processes rather than human engineering. Walking uphill becomes effortless gliding as these biological assistance devices activate beneath your weight, transforming climbing into floating sensations that make vertical movement feel like swimming through thick, supportive liquid. Patches of ground cover with leaves designed to collect and focus moonlight create pools of concentrated lunar illumination that feel warm against bare skin despite generating no actual heat. These living light collectors demonstrate photosynthetic processes adapted to process reflected solar energy through multiple atmospheric filters. Their cellular structures having evolved to extract usable energy from the faintest possible light sources while providing excess illumination for the benefit of night-traveling creatures. Hollow tree formations create natural observation decks where the heartwood has rotted away to leave perfectly shaped viewing platforms accessed through root-formed staircases. These organic architecture marvels offer elevated perspectives on the forest's nocturnal activities while providing acoustically perfect listening posts where even the faintest sounds carry with unusual clarity. The wooden platforms feel alive beneath your feet, their surfaces still connected to circulatory systems that pulse with slow motion hydraulic rhythms, cooperative fungal networks spanning multiple trees create decision-making matrices that respond to environmental changes through distributed computing processes. Their chemical communications, visible as faint phosphorescent trails, connecting seemingly separate organisms into unified information processing systems. Stepping across these communication pathways produces gentle electrical sensations as your bioelectric field temporarily interrupts data transmission, creating brief static in conversations conducted through molecular rather than verbal languages. Wind-carved passages through solid rock create natural organ pipes where air pressure variations produce deeply subsonic notes that resonate with the fluid in your inner ear, generating balanced sensations that make normal gravity feel optional rather than mandatory. These geological instruments play compositions determined by weather patterns. Their bass frequencies, so low they bypass conscious hearing, to create physical sensations of being gently rocked by invisible forces operating at the boundary between atmosphere and solid matter. Your final steps through this mystical realm carry you toward a clearing where all the forest's various energy systems converge into a single focal point, creating a natural meditation space where consciousness naturally expands to encompass the entire ecosystem's collective awareness, preparing you for the gentle transition into sleep, where dreams of misty forests and ancient wisdom will continue the journey your waking mind began, carrying you peacefully through the night on currents of healing rest that flow as endlessly as the clouds that gave this magical place its name. In this convergence point, your bare souls encounter surfaces that seem to pulse with the combined heartbeat of 1,000 species, each organism contributing its life rhythm to a master pulse that synchronizes your cellular regeneration with the forest's own healing cycles. The ground here feels neither solid nor liquid, but exists in some intermediate state that supports your weight while allowing complete molecular exchange between your body and the ecosystem's circulatory network. Overhead, nocturnal flowers unfurl with mechanical precision, their petals designed like satellite dishes to capture and amplify the faintest stellar radiation filtering through the cloud canopy. These cosmic receptors glow with accumulated starlight, creating a planetarium ceiling where constellations invisible to the naked eye become readable through botanical interpretation. The flowers pulse with captured cosmic energy, each bloom storing light that traveled millions of years to reach this precise coordinate, where Earth extends its most sensitive instruments toward infinite space. Your saliva begins to taste faintly metallic as trace minerals from ancient seabeds, now elevated thousands of feet above current ocean levels, dissolve from limestone deposits into the saturated air. These dissolved remnants of Jurassic marine life carry flavor profiles from epochs when these mountains lay beneath tropical seas. Their chemical signatures, awakening taste receptors, evolved to recognize nutrients your species encountered millions of years before developing language to describe them. Certain tree hollows function as acoustic time capsules, their interior surfaces having absorbed and stored sound waves from decades of forest conversations. Placing your ear against these organic recording devices reveals faint echoes of bird calls from seasons past, the ghostly whispers of long-dead leaves rustling in winds that ceased blowing before you were born. The phenomenon creates auditory archaeology, where patient listening uncovers layers of historical soundscape preserved in wood grain patterns that function as natural phonograph records. Biochemical reactions triggered by your presence cause certain plants to release airborne compounds that interact with your pituitary gland, stimulating the production of hormones typically associated with deep contentment and spiritual connection. These botanical mood regulators work through inhalation rather than ingestion. Their molecular keys, designed by evolutionary processes to unlock neurochemical states that promote healing and psychological integration in visiting mammals. Patches of soil enriched by centuries of specific leaf decomposition create localized magnetic anomalies that affect the iron content in your blood, generating gentle circulation changes that warm your extremities and create pleasant tingling in your fingertips. These naturally occurring therapeutic zones demonstrate how geological and biological processes can collaborate to produce healing environments that seem designed for human benefit despite evolving millions of years before humans existed. Root systems extending horizontally rather than vertically create biological bridges that flex slightly under your weight, transforming each step into a mild trampoline effect that reduces joint impact while providing gentle bouncing motions. These living shock absorbers have evolved to support the movement of large mammals. Their elasticity calibrated to creature weights that suggest evolutionary preparation for visitors who would not appear in these forests for millennia. After the root architecture established its current configuration, nocturnal leaf movements create whispered conversations in languages constructed from rustling patterns rather than vocal sounds. Their syllables, formed by cellulose structures, brushing against each other with intentional rhythm and timing. Learning to listen for these botanical dialogues reveals communication networks where trees exchange information about soil conditions, weather patterns, and the health status of community members through mechanical rather than chemical signaling systems. Underground water tables flowing through cathedral-sized caverns create subsonic reverberations that travel through bedrock to emerge as barely perceptible vibrations beneath your feet. These geological bass notes produce standing wave patterns that create zones of enhanced acoustic resonance, where your own heartbeat becomes audible as external percussion, teaching you to experience your cardiovascular system as environmental music rather than internal biological function. Microorganisms in the soil respond to the electrical field generated by your nervous system by increasing their bioluminescent activity, creating halos of bacterial radiance that follow your movement like living spotlights powered by your own bioelectricity. These microscopic collaborators transform your passage through their territory into interactive art installations where human consciousness becomes the creative force directing bacterial light shows that exist at the intersection of biology and physics. Certain flowering vines release pollen designed to be psychoactive for specific mammalian neurochemistry. They're airborne particles creating mild euphoric states that enhance pattern recognition and aesthetic sensitivity. Breathing these evolutionary narcotics produces gentle alterations in visual processing that make fractal patterns hidden throughout the forest architecture become suddenly visible and meaningful, revealing mathematical relationships underlying apparently random natural formations. Temperature differentials created by volcanic activity interact with moisture condensation to generate localized aurora phenomena, where electromagnetic fields make water droplets luminesce with colors typically visible only in polar regions. These tropical light displays shimmer just above canopy level, their dancing curtains of green and violet radiance reflected in countless leaf surfaces to create multiply mirrored infinity experiences that stretch perceived visual space beyond the physical boundaries of individual trees. Fossilized amber deposits embedded in stream beds contain prehistoric atmospheric samples that release ancient air when disturbed by flowing water, creating opportunities to literally breathe geological history through your lungs. These temporal inhalations carry oxygen ratios from climatic periods when Earth's atmospheric composition supported different forms of consciousness, temporarily altering your brain chemistry to approximate thought patterns from evolutionary phases your species navigated millions of years ago. Cooperative bacterial colonies living symbiotically in your digestive system, recognize and respond to chemical signatures unique to this ecosystem, adjusting their metabolic processes to optimize nutrient extraction from atmospheric minerals you're unconsciously consuming with each breath. This biological fine-tuning creates enhanced energy production at the cellular level, generating physical sensations of increased vitality and mental clarity that will persist for weeks after leaving the forest environment. Gravitational variations caused by underground metallic ore deposits create localized time dilation, effects where subjective experience of temporal flow decreases slightly, making minutes feel like extended periods of peaceful contemplation. These chronological anomalies allow extended processing time for sensory information, creating opportunities to experience individual moments with unusual depth and completeness before transitioning smoothly into the next sequential sensation. As consciousness finally surrenders to the forest's ancient rhythm, your breathing automatically synchronizes with the expansion and contraction cycles of the surrounding vegetation, creating respiratory harmony with an ecosystem that has been perfecting the art of peaceful coexistence for millions of years. Your thoughts dissolve like morning mist into the collective dreaming of countless species, carrying you gently across the threshold into restorative sleep, where the boundary between human awareness and forest wisdom disappears entirely, allowing you to rest within the eternal, nurturing embrace of Monteverde's cloud-wrapped sanctuary, until morning light gradually calls you back to waking consciousness, refreshed and renewed by communion with one of Earth's most magical places. Through this threshold of consciousness, your sleeping mind discovers pathways carved by millennia of patient rainfall, where each droplet has contributed to sculpting galleries within the living rock. These aquatic architects have created chambers whose walls weep perpetual tears of pure mountain water, each tear carrying dissolved quartz that crystallizes upon contact with cooler air. The resulting formations glitter like frozen starlight, their faceted surfaces casting prismatic shadows that dance without music, yet move in perfect synchronization with your slowing pulse. Dormant volcanic vents exhale breath that carries no heat yet warms through mineral content alone, their exhalations rich with elements that existed before life discovered photosynthesis. These geological sighs create updrafts that support insects whose wings have evolved translucent panels, living stained glass windows that filter moonbeams into therapeutic wavelengths. The filtered radiance falls across your closed eyelids like gentle fingers, encouraging the production of melatonin through pathways science has yet to map. Colonies of night-blooming, moss-release spores that serve as airborne vitamins. They're microscopic capsules designed by evolution to be absorbed through mammalian respiratory systems. Each inhalation delivers nutrients synthesized from cosmic radiation and morning dew, feeding cellular repair processes that accelerate during deep sleep phases. Your body recognizes these atmospheric supplements at the molecular level, triggering genetic switches that activate healing protocols typically dormant in urban environments. Certain ferns have developed fronds that function as biological barometers, their surfaces changing texture in response to atmospheric pressure fluctuations, too subtle for mechanical instruments to detect. Running sleeping fingers across these living weather stations reveals information about storm systems approaching from oceanic distances. Their cellular adjustments providing tactile forecasts written in a language your skin comprehends instinctively without conscious translation. Streams of ionized particles flowing between trees create corridors of enhanced electromagnetic activity that influence brainwave patterns in directions favoring creative problem solving and emotional integration. Drifting through these charged pathways during sleep allows subconscious processing of daily experiences through neural networks typically inaccessible during waking states, facilitating psychological healing through dream logic that operates according to forest mathematics rather than human reasoning. Nocturnal reptiles with scales that photosynthesize ambient light move through the understory like living gems, their passage creating brief aurora trails as accumulated radiance discharges through specialized skin cells. These walking light sources provide navigation beacons for dream journeys, their bioluminescent wakes marking pathways through subconscious landscapes where normal spatial relationships dissolve into purely emotional geography. Underground chambers filled with resonating crystals amplify the Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse, creating localized zones where planetary rhythms become strong enough to entrain human circadian cycles toward optimal healing frequencies. Sleeping within these geological transmission stations allows cellular regeneration to synchronize with cosmic cycles that govern everything from tidal movements to the migration patterns of species whose journeys span continents. Aerial routes descending from canopy heights carry electrical charges accumulated from atmospheric friction, their surfaces humming with voltages so gentle they promote rather than disrupt biological processes. These living lightning rods discharge their stored energy through contact with ground-dwelling organisms, creating bioelectrical circuits that span vertical distances impossible in non-forest environments, connecting sky-dwelling and earthbound life forms into unified energy networks. Patches of soil where ancient trees completed their life cycles contain decomposed wood that has achieved perfect carbon balance, creating growing medium so nutritionally complete that seeds germinating within it produce plants with enhanced healing properties. The aromatics rising from these botanical graveyards carry complex molecules that trigger nostalgic responses in visiting mammals, generating emotional states characterized by profound acceptance of natural cycles, including birth, growth, decay, and renewal. Certain flowering shrubs synchronize their blooming patterns with lunar phases, their petals opening in response to gravitational influences that affect cellular fluid dynamics. These astronomical gardeners create temporal art installations where beauty appears and disappears according to celestial schedules. Their ephemeral displays teaching lessons about impermanence through direct aesthetic experience rather than intellectual understanding. As your dreaming consciousness settles deeper into communion with this ancient sanctuary, the forest's final gift manifests as complete dissolution of the observer-observed boundary, allowing your awareness to merge seamlessly with the slow, patient breathing of an ecosystem that measures success not in individual achievement, but in collective harmony sustained across geological time scales. Your sleeping form becomes indistinguishable from the moss-covered logs and root systems surrounding you. Your breath joining the endless exhalation of countless leaves, processing starlight into oxygen, your heartbeat adding its rhythm to the percussion ensemble of nocturnal life, continuing its ancient dance through misted valleys where time flows like honey through amber, carrying you effortlessly into the deepest rest, where dreams of cloud-wrapped mountains and whispered forest wisdom will cradle your spirit until dawn's first gentle light filters through perpetual mist to welcome you back to waking consciousness, renewed and forever changed by communion with Monteverde's eternal embrace.